So today I'm going to be providing an example lesson that's going to be a short introduction to the BioMedical admissions test, the BMAT, and I'm going to be showing how I would introduce the subject and the admissions test to pupils, and then how I would work through problems with them. So the BMAT test is an admissions test for a few medical schools in the United Kingdom. It's used along with the UCAT, and you take both tests. Most people who take the BMAT, or almost everybody who takes the BMAT test, will have already sat the UCAT. So I kind of aim my BMAT introduction as at a student in year 12 going into year 13 who has already sat their UCAT exam and before they sit their BMAT. So the BMAT test is made up of 3 sections. Section 1 is a critical thinking and problem solving test, which I think is really quite similar to the UCAT. You have 1 hour to answer 32 multiple choice questions, and I think that makes the BMAT section 1 a lot less time pressured than the UCAT. You get, in some cases, up to 4 times the time that you would normally get, but the questions do tend to be a little bit more tricky. Section 2 of the BMAT is a scientific knowledge and applications test on maths, chemistry and biology and physics GCSE level questions. However, you do not need to take A-levels in those subjects to be able to answer the questions. Everybody who takes A-level chemistry, wants to do medicine, will have taken A-level chemistry, but many students I know have taught, and I have taught before, have not taken A-level physics, for example. But all of the questions are accessible and there's no need to worry. Section 3 is a extended writing task in which you have 3 prompts and a 30-minute essay to answer on one of those prompts. It tests your argument forming skills along with your how well you can communicate. There tends to be a general prompt, a scientific prompt and a medical prompt, as we'll see in a second. Only one of these prompts needs to be answered in the 30 minutes. And I, along with lots of other students, tend to find prompts 2 and 3 a little bit easier. So this first question here on the flower bed is a typical question for a section 1 BMAT. And you get approximately a minute to answer this question, but sometimes they don't take as long as that. So the question says that we are trying to line a flower bed with paving slabs, which are 50 centimetre squares, and we're trying to line kind of the perimeter of this rectangle here. And so the first thing you need to work out is how many paving slabs can you fit on the top side and the bottom side. So if it's a 12-metre length and the paving slabs are ½ metre long, you can fit 24 over this side. And you can also fit 24 down the bottom as well, because it's the same length. Now, the trick with this question is that if I put 24 paving slabs along the bottom, it reaches from edge to edge. Same here, 24 paving slabs reaches from edge to edge. And what it actually ends up doing is making our vertical line here slightly shorter than it was before. My 8-metre long, my 8-metre wide rectangle is now 7 meters wide because it's had 50 centimeters taken off at either end by these paving slabs. So this length here is now 7 meters. How many paving slabs can I fit along this side now? I can fit 14, 7 times 2. And I can fit 14 here. How many paving slabs must I need in total then? It's 24 plus 24 plus 4 plus 14 plus 14. So that is going to be 48 plus 28, which is equal to 76. So we need 76 paving slabs. As you can see, the most important thing with the BMAT is to just work through the questions logically. Section 1, lots of these questions will be these kind of problem solving techniques, and the rest will be on appraising written work. So question 14 here is a typical BMAT section 2 question. Carboxylic acids react with alcohols to make esters. A small amount of concentrated sulfuric acid is used as a catalyst. Consider the following ester here. What is the name of the alcohol that was used to form this ester? So the first thing we need to do with this question is to split our ester into its carboxylic acid and alcohol components. Thankfully, everybody that does medicine will be sitting A-levels of chemistry. So I think the chemistry questions on section 2 tends to be most easily accessed. Now here we can see our carbonyl group. And from our A-level chemistry knowledge, we know that the carboxylic acid that forms an ester is where the carbonyl group comes from. So I'm going to divide it in half. And within this box here is my carboxylic acid. This we don't have to worry about at all. It's not going to help us in this question. What's left over is our alcohol side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick a hydrogen on the end of my carboxylic acid to make it a little bit easier to recognize. So here's my hydrogen on the end of my alcohol. Now, all we have to do now is we need to identify this alcohol. As with all organic naming, what we need to do first is identify the longest carbon chain in our molecule. Here we have 1, 2, and 3 carbons. So meth, eth, prop. This is going to be a prop alcohol because it's got a carbon chain of length 3. Now, which group is our alcohol on? It's on our second carbon, so this is going to be propan-2-ol, which is G. So all of this knowledge you should have at GCSE level. I like to teach section 2 first because some students tend to not need very much prep for your section 2 at all. You just need to get used to the style of question. Your knowledge is already there. Some students they might need a little bit more help on section 2. Perhaps they haven't done physics or A-level maths, and so they need a little bit more recap time. Over here we have our section 3 prompts, and we're going to look at those in another lesson. So what I have now is I have a variety of questions taken from the 2021 BMAT section 2, and all we're going to do is we're going to work through these together in order to apply our knowledge that we already have from GCSE so we can access these questions the best we can. So question 1 is a typical biology section 2 question, and it's looking at cardiovascular disease, and we have to see which of these statements here are correct in order to find the answer. So statement 1 states that cardiovascular disease is a communicable disease. I'm going to highlight the important terms here. That is caused by the interaction of many factors. So GCSE biology, cardiovascular disease is fortunately, it's not communicable. You can't catch heart disease or atherosclerosis, things like that. So we know that this must be false. Statement 2, embryonic stem cells could be used for this treatment because they can differentiate into muscle cells in the heart. Embryonic stem cells are what's called pluripotent. They can differentiate into any type of cell. Therefore, this is a valid conclusion because they can differentiate into muscle cells. So this is correct. And finally, the treatment to replace damaged cells in the heart with stem cells could increase the risk of cancer developing. Now, cancer development, when you know from your, I think it's B6 unit in your GCSE biology, cancer is uncontrolled cell growth caused by damage to DNA. Cancer can occur when any cells divide, but it is more likely to occur after stem cell treatment because those embryonic stem cells are they're replicating very, very rapidly, and it means that those G2 checkpoints that you learn about in your first year in A-level aren't as effective at detecting DNA damage and decreasing the risk of cancer. So this also is a valid conclusion. And so the answer for this question would be 2 and 3 are correct, therefore it will be G. The last question we're going to look at today is a chemistry question, and it is that element Z forms a stable ion Z3- which has the electron configuration 288. So Z forms a stable ion, meaning a charged particle, Z3-, which has this electron configuration. To which group and period of the periodic table does a Z belong to, not Z3-? So, can we remember from our GCSE chemistry which way groups and periods go on Mendelev's periodic table? Yeah, so groups go across the periodic table and they increase in number laterally, and periods go down the periodic table vertically. So periods are defined by the amount of electron shells that are occupied with electrons in an element or an ion or a molecule. So because Z has an electron configuration of 288, or its ion has a configuration of 288, 3 electron shells are filled with electrons, or at least partially filled. So it must be in period 3, because 3 electron shells, period 3. So we can already discount half of our answers already. Now, what we need to do is we need to work out the group of Z. If group Z's ion 3- has an electron configuration of 288, that means it must have gained 3 electrons. So Z itself, because electrons have negative charge, group element Z itself must now have an electron configuration of 285, because it has lost it's lost 3 electrons from its ion to give it its actual element where it has no charge. So which group is element Z going to be in? It's going to be in group 5, because it's got 5 electrons in its outer shell. Now, the confusing thing with this question is that it lists the groups as 13 to 18 because it has included the transition metal ions in its groups, which isn't something that you normally see at GCSE, and it's something you might have to intuit, but you should have definitely come across it at A-level. So instead of group 5 we're looking for group 15. So group 15, period 3, the answer must be D. Cool. Thank you for watching my demonstration lesson. The next question we were going to go on to is on the physics side of paper 2, but I think this is a really effective way of teaching students the introduction to BMAT section 2, because you work through the problems with them. They are allowed to get used to the style of question without becoming completely out of their depth, and it gives me a good baseline assessment of where I need to pitch the lessons. So a lot of students, the biology questions, the chemistry questions, and even some of the maths questions, they don't need any recap from GCSE, and it means we can just focus on answering that style of question that comes up that's a little bit different to A-level and GCSE. And some students might need a lot more help on the maths or the physics, and so it allows me to accurately aim my next set of lessons. Thank you very much.